Okay, I think it'd be a good chance to say, let's get started. People are still coming in, but we have our time booked. Firstly, just like to say a big, huge welcome to you all to our webinar today. It does seem strange for many of us that we're not kind of looking at each other in a physical presence in the old library at Lloyd's, but you know, the last year has seen many, many changes for many of us. Now, for today, we wanted to take a look at how we believe the COVID pandemic has perhaps accelerated many things we were all contemplating when we were last to meet for a coffee, a business meeting, or indeed a pint. And I'd just like to remind you that I'm sharing the webinar today with two colleagues. We are welcoming your contributions, and we're going to have a Q&A session at the end, and I'd like to draw your attention to the chat function in the bottom of your Zoom screen, where you'll be able to raise any questions that you'd like directed at the panelists, and we'll ensure that they get answered at the end. So without further ado, distinctively digital. Well, this is a really, really big opportunity for us to talk about the things that have been occupying us for a lot of this past year. And we hope there'll be some really good, strong learning objectives that come out of today's sessions around what will my digitizing my business do to improve it, how to improve the customer experience, telling your marketing story in the digital realm, and how technology will drive your business forward. So with the continued growth of the MGA sector and at times increasingly tough carrier negotiations, we feel it's imperative to be seen and operate as a best-of-breed underwriting and distribution business. This is what we are becoming distinctively digital. And in this presentation, we're going to consider how two key elements can help you stand out in what you stand for and how you present that, and how you stand out by how you innovate and operate. We'll talk about the marriage of technology and strategically created marketing campaigns that can deliver to drive your business on. The MGA space is ever expanding, where, for example, we saw CFC moving into Lloyd's, demonstrating that the attributes and skills that got you to being an MGA pre-COVID might not keep you going post-pandemic. It's clear the world has changed, and we must all change with it. And the need to be both clearly understood, demonstrating publicly your operational and underwriting superiority, and the need for a clear purpose, something that customers can get and advocate around, and obviously, hopefully, helping to deliver a growing customer base. So a big thank you to the MGAA for giving us this opportunity today and allowing to chat to fellow members. And I'm delighted to be sharing today's webinar with two colleagues, Mark Huxley and Matt Carter. Many of you might know these guys. Hopefully you can see their pictures alongside me on your screen now. And they come from strategic change consultancy Cognitive Risks. We've been talking with Cog Risk for some months now about how we see the world, and in particular, how we see the world of our day-to-day lives in the insurance sector. And these conversations triggered an idea to share some of those thoughts with a wider audience. And it was natural for us to want to do that with fellow MGAA members. Brandex has been a proud partner of the MGAA since its inception, and we are honoured to be a supplier member of such a great community. Just a little bit about us. We're going to obviously distribute these slides following the event, but we have a strong record over a number of years across a number of sectors, but it's true to say that insurance is probably our sweet spot. We have clients right across the industry, and we've not only delivered campaigns for them in the UK, but across the world. So now to today's session, and I'm very pleased to be able to hand you over to Mark and Matt, who will tell you a little bit more about cognitive risk, and then kick things off with a look at how they see the challenges and opportunities presented by a post-pandemic insurance world. Thank you, Mark.
Great. Thank you, Stuart. Lovely to meet everybody. And again, echo the sentiment of Stuart. Thanks to the AA for giving us the space to come share the floor with the guys from Brandit. So probably best way, some of you may know what we do, some may not. So just a quick introduction to cognitive risk. So as the slide on the screen says, we sit in a space where insure meets tech through different lenses. Matt and I have spent much of our working life being innovators within the market. Me more around helping businesses with vision, mission, proposition. What do they want to be? How can they be the best version of themselves? Sometimes that's for other business. Sometimes, I'm an entrepreneur, so businesses I've owned myself. And Matt, and he'll introduce himself more, is sat on the tech side of it. So we feel we offer a little bit of alchemy in what we do because, as you can tell, neither of us are in the absolute first blush of youth. So we bring a huge amount of market experience into a space where it sits in that sweet spot between, say, where insure meets tech. So I guess there's a question that sits in there, kind of what makes us feel that we're a little bit different. I think really much of that boils down to a belief that we've got that many organizations that are going on this digitization journey, at worst, they're seeing it as a function within their business. We need to do it, so let's just set a team up and we'll do something. Probably not quite so bad, but not quite the right places. They just see it as a bit of a strategy, so they'll put a bit of a kind of think tank across the top of the business and try and navigate their way into some kind of improved areas. But that's just a little bit of a veneer over an existing business. The real art of it is actually gets down to one single word of the business that you're in, and that's your culture, and the corporate culture that puts around you, and a desire from the top of the business and across every touch point within that business just to want to drive change forward and get to the heart of why you are, what you do, why you get out of bed every day to come and do it. So by moving that mindset, you really then do start setting up a kind of cause, effects and consequence program that affects every operational decision that goes in. And that's when you feel change is really going about, because everybody is coming down to that great classic wonderful childish word of why are we doing this, why are we doing that. And it moves away from much of what Matt and I believe has been a bit of a stop-start for innovation, where people look at processes, they don't look at the systems. And if you look outside of the insurance sector, you absolutely start seeing why businesses move on, because they look at every cause, effect, and consequence. I'm making this decision here. What's it going to affect there? How do I improve somewhere else? And that's a mindset that I think, in a good way, because of what's happened with COVID, has moved people very much from an offline and a slight begrudging acceptance that they need to look into the digitization of their industry, into actually really starting to realize what they can do and what this system thinking can bring to them if they're going to move everything online. There's a whole new relationship being built up. And that, I think for you folks in the audience that are MGAs, is absolutely valuable to you, because my own personal belief, MGAs are one of the great last outposts of monoline underwriters. You're very specialist in what you do, and you need to be distinctive, and you need to have that big, I'm getting out of bed and this is why I'm doing it, and that's where we fit in there. But again, just some bits, we're going to get onto a second slide in a second, some bits in there. People find some of this scary because they look at this as about the culture, about being big step changes, but it doesn't. It just starts little connecting digital dots, as has gone up in the screen there, and kind of micro innovation, and just doing some little simple things slightly better in a slightly different way. And again, coming back to that why sitting in there. So I think as a final kind of comment, thinking about COVID and more about some of the larger corporation businesses sitting out there, that they very much felt that they didn't have the headspace and to actually make these changes, and they struggled to put the kind of art of the possible in with the day job that they were doing. We're feeling overstressed, we're being told to cut costs, but now we're being told to innovate. How on earth is that going to go out? And in our world, we try and encourage into this, what we call our FITS programs, or future insurance thinking, where again we just help organizations in a classic elephant sandwich metaphor, how you're going to eat it one bite at a time. Just try and put a different culture in, a different habit, be better about what's going on. And the good thing we've seen out of the other side of COVID is no one's going backwards. I think everyone has now seen the benefit of change, and there's a desire to want to see that move forward and drive this new culture that would sit in there. And I think everybody, ourselves included in this session, are going to be looking at this so-called now business as usual, hybrid working. What are we going to do? We've really got to learn to make the tech our friend, make this change our friend, really start walking to a much better and more secure place. So there we go. So I think on to the next slide, if we may. So just as a little kind of hopefully to help along, I sort of just put, from my perspective, and this is about being a kind of mission and vision guy, just 5 things up that might kind of encourage some of that different thinking for you. So first one, if we sit up there, we've got 1 and 2 up there together, but that's fine. So first one sitting up there, ideas are free, encourage them. There's great misconception going around that once you get into innovation, you've really got to put lots of programs in. It's all going to be very expensive, and we got to do big things. Both Matt and I mentor folks both within insurance and outside of it. And what we've come to see is actually the best ideas often are the free, and they're the simplest, and they're the cheapest. The old-fashioned ideas box, just put it in there. And again, if you keep this micro innovation sitting in there, it's not then just about putting these big shiny new products in. It's just about boiling stuff down and taking that idea and thinking about, right, what can we do with that idea? Where could we take it? What would it affect? How could we make an improvement elsewhere? And a good place to start with that is, of course, mapping around your customers. If you're looking for an example, how many people in the insurance industry genuinely go out and ask their customers, what do they want? I think it's fair to say we've been an industry that's been guilty of selling what we think is right to customers that aren't actually naturally engaged ambitiously to want to buy many of the products that we put in front of them. Yet if we spoke to them, we would find that they actually want to be in. They see the benefit of insurance. And again, I think if we put a shout out to our friends in the insurtech community, and you look at some of those businesses, maybe like Bought by Many or Lacquer that sit out there, they've absolutely turned that on its head and said, look, we want to communitize what we do. We're here for you. You need to tell us what you need us to be, and we'll do for you. So moving to the second point on there about innovation champions. Oh, there we go. Most businesses fail at this because they don't really put the right resource in. As I said before, they see innovation as a function or as a strategy. So they'll take somebody who's got a day job doing one thing and say, well, look, you seem to be reasonably creative, so just you go and innovate, and that's not a good place to start. I mean, you just can't expect people to be able to assume the creativity that needs to go around that, or go back to the culture part of it, be in an environment where they've actually got the freedom to do what they want. And I cast no direct aspersions, but seen way too many times CEOs of businesses that every great idea is their idea, and this is particularly on scaling businesses. Not so much in corporate size organisations, but on the scaling, it's I'm the CEO, I'm the biggest salary earner, and I'm telling you this is what we need to do. Such and such told me I saw this. This is how we're going to get this in that business. That is absolutely not the place to start. What the CEO and the board need to be doing is empowering these innovation champions and saying, come on guys, we just want this culture of change. How can you make this happen for us? So it becomes a collective and a collegiate responsibility going through. And that can be down to an individual, or actually that could actually be down to building this kind of culture across the whole of the business. So the whole business becomes an innovation champion. And there's a thread of that which is called disciplined innovation. And that is then about really empowering everybody to be the think tank of the organisation and carving out time to do that. And if you want a great example of scale of people that do that, go look at Google. They encourage their employees to spend 20% of their time, i.e. one of their working days each week, just to work on projects that have got nothing to do with their day jobs, just to get them out. It's almost that kind of sabbatical type feel. You're going to just go and think about something different, bring it back. And either that's coming up with new ideas, or often it's just seeing that micro innovation again, that I'm just seeing some stuff coming back in. So encourage, think about, and put the right champions in there. Next bullet, Rob. Thanks. So again, mentioned before about what do your customers want and what's important to them. we'll talk later on. I know Stuart's going to talk at length about, communicating with the customers and not just looking at some of the vanity measurements that are at the moment, but look at some real measurements. And I'm going to say no more because I don't want to steal Stuart's thunder on that. But it's very important that you get them on side, because they're the guys that have got the answers to unlock all the clues about what it is that you want. And you need to become sympathetic to what they need. You've got to become empathic to what is it that they're looking for you to do, and really listen to that and really bring that back into the business and let that drive you. And sometimes not always to results, but let it drive you to ideas, let it drive you to whatever the art of the possible is, so that you feel like you're all living in the same place, working to the same end, and that there is a lovely virtuous circle between you and your customers sitting out there. And there are some great examples in our sectors that are doing that at the moment. So becomes a really good signpost for you as a business, and you don't waste your time, effort, and often a lot of money just investing in things that are great vanity for you, but not there for everybody. So next bullet. So collaboration. Open innovations become a bit of a buzzword in business and industry. Really recognises it's rarely down to an individual or a single company, but true innovation comes together when clusters of people, companies, divisions come together and feel that they've got the freedom to openly collaborate, bounce ideas around, work on new and exciting things, and not feel that they're kind of siloed into their one area. I think if it's fair to say, if one looks far enough back into the insurance industry, you would never find underwriters talking to claims people. One is a profit generator, the other is a cost center. Long, thank God, are those days gone. The businesses do collaborate better, but that can never stop, and that is a constant evolution of when you think you've got the right collaboration, look for that new opportunity. And another much vaunted word at the moment is about ecosystems. And I think one of the great things that I think we've learned within our organizations is there are much more clever people outside of our organization that can help us, and we're all a lot freer about going outside and looking to be immersed in the creativity of other organizations. So whether that's universities, peers from another sector, or even someone within your supply chain, dare I say, go down that far and ask them, kind of what's making your life difficult with our life? How do we overcome that? How do we charter together to actually put something out there which is going to really kind of create the value chain that we want to put in front of our people? So to which point the last bullet point sitting on there is exactly that. Trust your people and embrace their failure. I mean, I think the insurance industry has been one of the world's worst at actually allowing failure to happen. And you can understand it if you're in a risk transfer environment. You don't want to be writing the wrong risk that's got too many noughts on the end of it and the thing goes wrong. But actually in a very small sandpit way, allowing people to do it in a closed environment where they can actually feel safe, they feel they can innovate and put in there. You've got to trust that they've got the knowledge to actually be able to take you to the place that you want to be, and also a way that actually embraces the right talent to want to work at your organization and feel that they're part of that value chain that you're building, and they feel they've got some ownership over it. It's starting to happen. It comes. Matt and I mentor at the Lloyd's Lab, so there's a living, breathing example of how that works, and we see some of the internal people that work there, internal mentors that work within the managing agencies, and there's a really nice feeling when they come into almost a sanctuary of innovation. So just allow your people to do what they can do well. Take them down journey with you. Slightly educate them about what you need that journey to have as outcomes, because you're a commercial organization at the end of the day. Don't be frightened when they fail. Just learn from that failure and push across it. So there's 5 tips. You could put another 500 tips on there and still not get to the end of it. But hopefully from a business innovation point of view, that's me. I'm going to put across to Matt now, who looks to the same middle, but from the other side of the lens.
Great stuff. So thanks, Mark. What I'm going to talk about is from the technology side, with more from a thematic perspective rather than a sort of individual technology function. And as Mark previously mentioned, and our our future insurance thinking is really about aligning and delivering smarter, connected insurance. We talk about bringing smart people and smart technology together. And we often, as we've already said, talk about where insure meets tech, but now I'm going to be talking about where the tech meets the insure. So choice is plentiful, and technology exists in abundance, but what we need to do is look at where the industry is heading, and think about combining the sort of the strategies that are needed to take the technology and deliver, the right values, the right efficiencies, and ultimately for an MGA, delivering some scale. And it's very important that technology effectively enables you to create next generation businesses and future generated operating models. So in short, it's my belief that today any business, and specifically MGAs, do not need to go and build the technology they need. It exists out there. Pretty much everything that you need has been built, and much of it is multiple versions of the same thing. If you take quote and buy platforms, there are plenty of them, but the trick is knowing how you're going to deploy them, where you think the value lie, what the capabilities you're seeking out are table stakes for you, and what the solution is looking to, and which needles for your business as you're looking to move. And once you can understand how you want to engage with the technology, that'll help sort of shortlist your vendor shortlist. And as already been mentioned by Mark, this brings us on to ecosystem. So again, slightly buzzword bingo, but really important today. And that with an abundance of technology, and in 2021, the way an organization, and specifically an MGA, I think will really be able to transform itself is to start looking at how you build your own ecosystem, one that's fit for your own purpose and amplifies your points of distinction, and helps you deliver a lighter touch operation where it needs to apply. And that's sort of the ecosystem approach being sort of modular in basis goes back to some of the points that Mark made around innovation. So we're great believers. We're both curious people. So understanding the art of the possible and what the opportunities could be will help start to drive some of the technology solutions or vendors that can help you get there. And the ecosystem is very, very, very important to consider, and start to build your own one that's right for your business. And that's about having best of breed applications sat at the core of your business. So as already been mentioned by Mark as well, I mean, MGA, these businesses, your business in many respects been blessed operating in a very established market. There's many engaged carriers supporting you and partnering with you, and being able to benefit from a sort of a surge in technological solutions coming along the path. So, and being the benefits of being sort of so singularly focused and hyper personalized is that this can help you use technology to actually amplify the way your business operates, and that can be supported as well by your customers who believe, or pretty much now believe, that there is no one size fits all, and they coming to you are looking for organizations that really understand how you can build sort of bespoke capabilities for your specific niches or customer, and technology is very important to play into that design process. Now, the final thing around technology and going forward is that businesses generally are moving, and customers are requiring or demanding that we're moving to more of an experience-based model. And this is true now of many of the digital MGAs that have been set up, rather than being an operating model built around transactions. And this is as much true for your customers as it is for your partners. So trying to ensure that we have a digital mindset at the core is really, really very vital. But of course, which solutions to choose, which ones can become differentiators, and what options and how to deploy them. That is where time is needed to be spent trying to work out where it's going to bed into your business, the direction you want to take your business, and the functions and areas that you think go from being IP, so valuable, to effectively process or automation, and where you need to apply as light touch to it as possible. As we go through, it's very, very important as well that your business, like deploying technology, you shouldn't look upon deploying any sort of technology as a once and done. Your business needs to be agile and be able to respond to changes in dynamics, changes in market, changes in carriers, and therefore your technology needs to go hand in glove with that. And then one other element where technology can play a really critical role is how your business considers servicing your customers and stop treating them like policyholders. So one of the things that is a question that I think we pose some of our customers and clients rather is, as a business, can you get a snapshot of your customer engagement 24/7? You know, if you ask systems within your business, can you get the answers to who and which of your customers have created a touch point with you in the last 24 hours? And then can you also take that a stage further and actually be able to segment and identify what is the next products that you could be selling to those customers? So without being able to answer those questions, and that is a marrying up between the products that you offer and the solutions and technology you have, maybe even around a CRM, then that is certainly something that would going to set you apart from being a digital sort of core business to one that is rather more analog in domain. And of course, as we move on, we can't talk about technology without mentioning data. But to cut this one short, data is applicable for an MGA in a number of ways. One is obviously about showing and demonstrating control and compliance, but really it also must be used to demonstrate agility and change and how you respond to the changing market dynamics. So one of the key things about having data and access to data is being able to explain and expose how you actually use it to move your business on. We think that's more important. And just in conscious of time, what we're going to do is move through to sort of one final thought really is that products and the domain and the is changing. In historic times, not so long ago, you know, intermediation was required, and the role that the MGAs fulfill was a sort of translator to some of the complexities and language that insurers used. But now the internet principally, but technology more generally, and the application of FAQs and wikis and trusted reviews, that role is slightly taking a back seat. And what's coming along the rails, of course, is how the products are designed and how they're more fit for purpose. So we see a lot of change, and the way that MGAs are going to be outward, you know, delivering products to their customers and to the market around the needs to look at the way parametrics is being applied, and effectively creating micro products that get embedded into customer journeys is again a direction of travel that some MGAs are already adopting, but we think is going to be critical and very instrumental to the way that the market moves forward. So that's around the product design. Rob, move on to the next slide. But what does this all mean for MGAs? What are the challenges that we're going to have to overcome? Clearly, insurance is a very busy street. So competition and challenges are all around. We need to take some considered approach, and we you know, Mark and I talk about many insurance businesses being very vanilla in their form. And again, this webinar is about trying to find some areas where you can find a point of distinction, both with your communications and with the technology that you use to drive your proposition. We've already talked about the last post of monoline underwriting and having single purposes, but of course amplifying and raising the profile of the specialisms that you have, the expertise that you have within your businesses, and the purpose and the visions of your organizations is critical, not just to your customers, but potentially more so to your partners, so they understand what it is you stand for and what it is you value and how they can play into that mix. We're trying to think as well around the challenge of ensuring that your organization is firmly empowering your people, but doing that with a technology-centric approach, so that where required, where able, we're looking at taking some data and bringing it in so that we're being driven by the experience of the people, and the technology is driving the operational efficiency. Again, the challenge is, as we already talked about, the technology, data everywhere, but data being referred many times to being this new oil, that it's really trying to understand and extract what is the key bits of information and insight that your business can consume or react to and respond to, that makes the difference between your performance, your operation, and importantly to both your customers and your partners, and actually being able to demonstrate and present that in a way that is understood. And then the final point is looking at back to the ecosystem, is actually ensuring that we're looking at trying to optimize your business and optimize your operating model. And a lot of the work we're doing is to say that actually this can be done in a more modular approach, but the tools and solutions out there that can help you create sort of areas of incremental benefit or performance gains exist. And back to the point, the secret sauce is about having a very perspective of your direction that you want to take your business, and the different solutions that can be effectively chained together to actually realize it. And we're talking about bringing the innovation and tech disciplines together, and that also goes in hand with your go-to-market and your marketing communications mix, which is vital, which is where we're going to flip the presentation to now. So I know Stuart will talk much more about these and many other points. So we've gone from the technology, we've got innovation, the technology exists from a highest level, and now we're going to talk about the communications to help you become distinctive, but with a digital slant. Stuart.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Mark. It's given us certainly plenty of food for thought there. There's no doubt in our experience that marketing communications works best when the technology and IT folks sit down with the marketing communications folk very early and start to work collaboratively on projects, rather than working in silos and kind of turning things out that needs the other half of the business to respond to. So that idea of collaboration that Mark spoke so forcefully about is really, really a powerful thing for marketing communications. Being together, exploring ideas, deciding on approach, right at an early stage, all pulling in the same direction. You might say, it has just that much better chance of success. So yeah, fast changing environment, traditional boundaries blurring almost by the day, and that's probably just from the established competition. We all know these players outside the traditional arena that we work in, they're all seem to be queuing up outside, fancy new toys, and they just want to push our traditional ones out of the way. So what are we going to do about that? Well, one of the first things we always think about is asking people to stand up and look over the hedge. What's happening in the big wide world out there? Think about, as an MGA, just start to think about how your own personal daily interactions, with big brands, companies, have changed in recent years. What impresses you about the way your bank has adapted? Perhaps it didn't. Perhaps you sought out one of the new challenger banks because they offered a much more, responsive digital experience. Why do we use continually certain companies to order our groceries, our wine, many other things? Why do we return and buy again? What is it about them that brings this loyalty in us? These often very personal conclusions can be very important as we think about the way our businesses operate. What we really want to know is what our business partners and customers feel about us. Do we make it easy for them to work with us, to buy off us? Do we make them feel appreciated and valued? And on the screen there, you see a quote that goes back from 24 years ago. It's from what's now become quite a famous piece that Steve Jobs gave when he returned to Apple in '97. And what he said there about marketing, about values, complicated, noisy world, people's very time poor, assaulted on all sides by huge demands. What are the opportunities for us as companies to get them to remember something about us? It's getting more difficult because it's a very, very busy world out there. And I think, when we all as businesses have those reflective, honest moments where we take a cold and hard look at our own business and realize, perhaps for many of us, we're trying to sell products and services much like many others in our space. So if that means we can't exactly be different, how can we be distinctive in that space? So, thanks, Rob. In the interest of time, we have here a thing we've loosely called the climates. Going about it, we talked about that collaboration between the technology guys and us marketing communication guys, the sitting down, the auditing of the business, lots of these things around understanding as you set off. What is it you need to do today, tomorrow, and then a little bit in the future? What are the key factors that you're going to kind of measure yourself against, that you want to strive for? And then, of course, that absolute necessity is once you've looked at that big wide world and think, well, ASOS do that very well. Boohoo do that very well. Amazon, they do that very well. When it gets closer to home, that ability to sit down and honestly assess the landscape you're in and the competition. Then try to create a roadmap that balance, business as usual, which we must not lose sight of, but with a kind of a road there that, of reaching more customers. And then obviously thinking about aligning across the technology bit there. So one of the first things we would recommend is a little bit of touching on both what Mark and Matt have touched on, is thinking about what you know about your business partners and customers. How much do you really know? Or how much have you just assumed? How much have you just done based on some years of professional experience? People, I think, are quite willing to be asked and actually feel quite engaged to be asked by a company, what do you think of us? How are we doing? Can we be better? And I think a simple survey that you can set up either through one of the tools like SurveyMonkey, they require a little bit of effort from someone, but you can run them in a simple, effective way that gives you a great start to understand what's bothering your customers about you, your service, your products, and also, hopefully, what they think is really great at what you're doing. Now, SurveyMonkey is one of a raft of digital tools that can be very, very powerful for businesses. Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook have a lot of these, and they kind of generally fall under what we'd all call advertising mechanisms. The kind of place when many of you will be on LinkedIn and you look at that thing and think that's not really for us. But what I want to tell you is that these tools can reveal a lot of data that is a wealth of data that you can use. Granted, you might have to assign a credit card to get access to these tools, but it's very clear that you never actually have to activate any paid-for campaign. You can sit there and pump in your search queries into these and let LinkedIn tell you how many people risk managers that work in the pharmaceutical industry, you know, up in the Manchester or Northwest. Google will tell you how many searches are made each month on professional indemnity cover in a region, but in Birmingham, by a postcode. Fascinating wealth that comes out and helps you to try to size the potential audience that you're in, the customer base that you're looking for, and who these people might be very well interested in you as a company in terms of the services and products that you have. It does require a bit of hard work, but these are things that a lot of companies can self-serve by putting the time in. And then once you start to assimilate this data, as Mark and Matt have said, there's a huge opportunity to start thinking about how you springboard off it in terms of reaching out and that. And in the interest of time, we have a slide here about the communication solution. And I think once you have this data to hand, then it's all about making sure you can begin telling those people what they want, what you want them to know about you. So if you could move to the next slide, Rob. Very, very quickly, you'll be able to get these. These are all around these tools that I've just mentioned. All of these platforms offer almost like marketing academies, free for you to read, best practice, case studies, companies like yourselves. You can look at these and learn. And some you obviously are not all that relevant, but some within it, particularly if you have the appetite to just look outside your traditional sector and think about how other companies have mastered these challenges and actually, you know, absolutely taken the opportunities through a good hard look at their own business, learning about their customers, and then absolutely being a little bit brave around the innovation and trying things. So we would then say, once you've done this bit, there are some housekeeping things that you really need to do. It's no good thinking, well, we know about this, we're going to do this, we're going to create some targeted marketing campaigns for these kind of people we really want to focus on. If your website is not performing, you might consider in that first instance setting up a LinkedIn company page would be a really good place to be for the kind of professional community that you want to reach. These tools are free in the sense of you don't have to pay to have that, but you just have to have someone who's willing to set them up and run them. And a business entry on Google, where just making sure some key boilerplate things like office address, telephone number, email, website, those kind of things. Google now allows you to post all kinds of items around that. New products, there's all kinds of opportunities. So using that as a news function to build awareness about you as a business is definitely to be recommended, because the sheer numbers of people who are on Google every day looking for stuff is a massive opportunity. So there's many, many channels to consider in this digital realm. But we would say it does make sense not to forget and forgo those traditional channels that we've all come to love over the years. Face-to-face meetings, conferences, webinars like today, they really have a big role still to play. And as much as the insurance sector has, kind of relied on these human-to-human interactions for a long, long while, they're still really important. But there's a big thing about once you've had your pint, you've had your coffee, you had your business meeting, you'll return to your relative pace of work. Might be the office, more likely to be home nowadays. You kind of think about how the other business is digitally set up to enable you to do business with them and make it work really well. And that's where we all start to make those judgments about if we were to do business together, or I was to buy this or do this, employ this service, how would it run? And how would a digitization, element of that make my life easier and make it a really efficient way of doing business? Would it make me feel less stressed about the way things are going, feeling absolutely more efficient and productive? These are the kind of things that this can happen. So, and then ultimately it's that classic thing of, do I like doing business with them? Do I like buying off them? So when you've done all that, this is the key decision for any company. What is it you really want to be famous for? And forgive me here for harking back to a little-known early boy band. Some of you will possibly be old enough to remember Broths. But at the heart of the message, when will I be famous? We're talking about is what is it that as a company you really want to be known for? What makes you memorable compared to others? Once you do this and think about the core of the message, and you've looked at all that data it tells you about your customers and other potential customers, and actually think about targeting marketing campaigns so you can build awareness across a number of fronts, because the classic brand progress then is once people are aware, they can consider you. So they can consider to you next time they're looking for something, they think, I read a lot, I see a lot about this business, it does this, it does that, perhaps we should take a deeper look at them, so we shall consider them in our next steps. So you get that thing and you build a marketing communication around that core, targeting the people you have identified and you wish to reach. And then perhaps harking back to Steve Jobs' thing about getting stuff out there in front of people. Persistency and consistency. It's a complicated and noisy world, he said, and we're not going to get much chance to get people to remember about us. So be prepared to do things more than once. Working lives have changed, 9 to 5, more people log on first thing and last night. And even if you're like me, you'll do a significant amount of research in the evening on a mobile or a tablet. Think about times a day where perhaps people are in a mood to actually learn more about you as a company. I think those things are really, really important to consider as you take out these things. But the most important thing there is really thinking about consistent messaging and persistent. Be prepared to do it again and again. The opportunity of catching someone just that once is disappearing because they're assailed on all sides by the demands of working life, family life, let alone just trying to have a social life, going out for a pint or meal, go and play your favorite sport. There's lots of opportunities. So think about how you can reach them at important times. And here, what happens when you've done all this? What does the view look like when you've made that climb? And you really should be thinking about all this as to take what Mark and Matt said about these things are not once and it's done. Oh, we did technology, we did marketing in 2021. We won't have to do that again. This really is about an evolving, changing landscape and focusing on that. And when you get near that end of the journey, you should be thinking about how do you move past a vanity metric like NPS? How do you really kind of judge whether you really have met and exceeded customer expectations? Has it really truly happened through a combination of, fantastic digital execution and meaningful, insightful communications? Does your brand speak for you? As a marketeer, let that technology deliver excellent service, build that loyalty, let people like doing business with you, by making sure you're hitting all those things. And, it's pretty clear that an MGA that has advocacy from both its carriers and its customers is hopefully going to be truly king. And one more thing from Jobs, from that thing in 1997, which is still relevant today, which he said about Apple, as they've grown to be the most valuable company in the world. And we've all seen their impact on our daily lives. Even a great brand needs investment and caring. So it needs thought, and investment can come across another thing. It might be willpower, thought. It can be a financial implication. But then there's this thing about why are we doing this? Because we care. We care about our business and we care about what it means to our customers and business partners. So I think there's a great opportunity about being distinctive and connected. Cognitive risks, they help businesses to find where they want to go, and they highlight some of the digital tools that can help businesses execute those. Communication promotion, that's where we come in at the end of BrandX. And whether it's internal change or external effective marketing, it's critical to bring everybody along on this well-defined and understood journey. A modern MGA needs to operate definitely at this intersection, this crossroads of the product, technology and marketing, and not just once, and not just we've done that. That's a constantly thing, because in all these, I think Mark and Matt would agree that once you do these things, you take all your learnings and they just go back into the funnel as you do the next thing. You're constantly learning and updating your approach based on what you've learned. And as we've discussed in the next slide, Rob, it is a busy world out there. There's huge potential for lots of colliding challenges and opportunities. And we believe really, really very much that by bringing technology and marketing teams into partnership, there's a real opportunity for MGAs to connect those dots and start to bring order to that environment. Then the journey, we feel, truly begins to becoming distinctively digital. So we thank you for a lot for your time today, and we just have an opportunity, if people are interested, we would like to offer to MGA members and those that are interested a free workshop. If you're interested in some of the thoughts we have and some of what we talked about today, we're starting to form a partnership between BrandX and Cognitive Risk, which is looking at this space. As I said, it's been a fascinating few months as we've come together to talk about these issues and understand a pathway out of it and what that might mean to us. So if you've got a challenge you'd like to discuss, a new product, perhaps it hasn't been marketed, communicated in the right way, or it hasn't been done at all, or just a thought about as you approach something in the future, we're very happy to sit down and have that free hour with you, and we'd like to offer that to here today. So a very, very big opportunity for us today. We're a little running over late. I see we have a question, but we hope some of those learning objectives have been made. We thank you for your time. And obviously, we'll now see to look if we can answer some of those questions.
I'm happy to put a couple of words in across the top of Caroline's questions if you want.
Thank you. Please do.
It's in a couple of parts. The London market's a very unique environment in the way it intermediates and distributes its product. So, it is obviously at least a one B2B, if not a B to a B to a B, that can end up with a C somewhere down the line, and they're remote from it. So the whole face-to-face thing really is, there's a very strong kind of systemic culture, for good or for bad, that sits within the market around building trust, building reputation, being seen as the go-to influencer that sits in. And I think that, in one sense, prior to COVID, is what was slowing things down, because you had the kind of phrase, the big dog underwriter that was sitting there, and I am the come-to person, you will come and do this because I was that big influencer. I think and I don't agree with that advocation. I think the corporation should always be bigger than the individual, and the brand should sit that much higher than within it. And I think the one thing that has absolutely collapsed during COVID is that one single requirement for that relationship, that because it all had to move online, because people had to do things remotely, actually everybody felt that they became better syndicated in that relationship. And I think coming out of the other side of it, and this is going to be some of the hard yards for our friends at BrandX, is you've got to be able to create these bigger points of influence with your stakeholders, clients and customers, to still keep driving that trust and that reliability. It's a risk-bearing industry, so it demands that it's there, but from afar. And I think, very eloquently, that's much of what Stuart spoke to in the way you communicate with people and the way you influence. And Matt referenced it about our kind of vanilla comment, and we just look at businesses and we get to that slight kind of Simon Sinek why, and you line all of the Lloyd's managing agencies up, if we're going to pick on those folks, and they all look different and everything else, but actually they all look like vanilla ice cream in a supermarket. The boxes might be different, but when you take the lid off and you put the spoon in, it all tastes the same. So how do you create that point of differentiation? We do it through innovation and through the work that we do, and the enablement part of it. I won't speak for Stuart, but it's absolutely what kind of a highly reputable firm like Brandex will help the clients do as well. So just a quick one to the second point on there, you put, Caroline, about has COVID and working from home been a big trigger that digital change is needed yesterday? Yes, it absolutely was, because that's a prophesying truth. It was yesterday. I think there's another landscape that's coming up that if the folks are not careful about, they will miss a bus, because everyone's still talking about digitisation. Matt and I, through some of the people we get exposed to, we see that actually we're now moving to an era of intelligence, not of digitisation. Digitisation really is about like using electricity in your business. Why would you not use it? Why is that an option? It's there. Use it. It's there. Actually, what's really starting to come through, and this will be some of those points of differentiation, is the way insurance will move to an algorithmic-based relationship, how machine learning and AI will sit in there, how robotics will take much of that kind of heavy lifting out of the industry, which means the technicians have really got to become intelligent folks, and that should become a big point of differentiation for them, so that they actually do demonstrate they're the bigger dog underwriter and they do understand their onions. So that'd be my take on the question, Stuart. I don't know if you've got bits you wanted to add around that.
No, I not much more to add to that. And I think, we're all, the last year has forced as many of us to take a hard look at things. There's been a lot of stressful times as we wonder about how business would survive. And there's been some things in the market, around the business interruption and stuff like that we've all had to think and consider. But I mean, it just reminds me, I came in the office today to do this, hoping, I'd have my great internet connection. And I hope it hasn't been too intrusive, but I'm sitting near a window where there's been, a fair bit of outside traffic noise. And as opposed to it being a bit like a ghost town for a long while. And if anything, that kind of gives us that optimism boost that things are returning to normal. Activity is picking up. And as we traditionally, I guess, head into a summer where in the insurance world, we see a little bit of a pause. Perhaps this summer it won't be. Perhaps that big summer holiday break is going to be the time for lots of businesses to sit down and think about the year ahead and the 3 years ahead, say. So,
sorry, Stuart, if I can just quickly interrupt you.
Yes, please do.
To Caroline's point, wrapping up COVID, working from home and face-to-face, I think what that has done in 2020 to 2021 is it's just amplified and accelerated the fact that every business has to operate across multiple channels. And that is in the way that you're operating, the technology you use, and the communications that you expose outward. That's what I believe has happened in a sort of a wrapper around all of that. It has changed. The mindset has shifted, and I think adoption and understanding that one size doesn't fit all, and we've got to play on many different methods now is very important. There was another question, because I'm very conscious of time. There's another question about what good looks like and the challenges. That's quite hard, but I think if what one way of what good might look like from any organization is, if given what happened with COVID, is if you feel now that you can operate your business without missing a heartbeat, whether you're located in Glasgow, London, or sharing resources with a collaborative team remotely, then you're definitely in a good place to react to whatever comes next in the market. So it's try to become a very short answer to what could be a very long answered question. Stuart, sorry.
Thank you, Matt. And I think without further ado, I'd just like to round off by saying thank you so much for giving your time today, those of you who have attended. We hope you've enjoyed our conversation in some respects. We're very hopeful that we've been helpful, and that perhaps there's been some things that you've been occupying your minds that you've been able to learn something today, or think about that, or perhaps it's pricked some kind of conversation that you need to have in your own business, and that would be really good. So it just remains for me to say a big thank you to Mark and Matt, and particularly to my colleague Rob, who's running the back end, DJing the decks, as it were. But finally, just a big thank you to the whole team at the MGAA for giving us this opportunity to share our thoughts. And without further ado, we're keen to bring it in on time. We're perhaps just a minute or two over. But thank you so much for your time, and look out for the emails. We'll follow up with copies of the slide. We know the MGAA will be putting the presentation and everything on their website like they normally do. So thank you once again, and enjoy the rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.